From beautiful downtown Sacramento, it's time for Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Beach Blanket, Beach Blanket Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Spazzy's got a show when you really want to know what's going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beach Blanket, Beach Blanket Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Art and music golden blue and your favorite comics too. Grab a spot and settle in, 'cause it's high time we begin. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo Podcast. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hello and welcome to Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. My name is Steve Schnee and I will be your host for this very special conversation. Now, joining me is my occasional co-host and occasional friend. I know him by his real name, Ronnie Barnett, but most of you will know him by his stage name, Ronnie Barnett, and he has his own magnet. Hello, Ronnie.
Hey, everybody. And hey, Steve. And hey, Vanessa.
And today, our very special guest is the one and only Vanessa Hay. She's one of the founding members of Pylon, the only band that could challenge R.E.M. and the B-52s as the most influential band from Athens, Georgia. There's a brand new 4-LP vinyl box set on New West Records that features their first 2 classic albums, plus 2 LPs of rare and unreleased tracks. We're so honored that she has taken the time to chat with us here about the Pylon box and so much more. Welcome to the Blanket Fort, Vanessa.
Well, hello. Hello, Stephen, and hello, Ronnie. So nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, I know. Finally. Thanks for being here. You've been doing press all over the place. I saw you on the Tonight Show and, I think Dick Cavett, so.
I think I took Ambien and forgot about those.
This box set is now available. It's called the Pylon box. 4 LPs. Ronnie's holding it right there.
Wait, I'll show you the back.
Okay.
And I'll show the top. I really love the top. I love that touch.
Yeah, that's nice. How are you feeling about the reaction to this, Vanessa?
Well, it's really overwhelming, to me, because, even though I've done music on and off for years, there's never been this level of attention all at once on me. Mm-hmm. And usually in the past, I wasn't the one who gave a lot of the interviews, it'd be Michael or Curtis. Curtis is very busy right now with his job, and Michael is, he's been up there with me quite a bit, but I'm getting way more attention that I don't know if I should have dreamed this or not, but but it's been great because to me, it's been such a long process, to get to this point that it's just I feel vindicated is the wrong word, but I feel like I did the right thing, that my gut instincts were right, and working on this so long.
I've always felt the band was entirely wholly unique. There have been comparisons to Gang of Four, there have been comparisons to other bands, but when you listen to Pylon, the chemistry of the 4 people making those records, each person brings a very, very important element to the band. Did you guys realize that what you were doing was unique?
Actually, I don't think so, because we approached it at the beginning. I was recruited to come into this after the guys had been going for a while. Randy and Michael didn't know how to play at all. We were all in art school together, and I think when it was explained to me by Randy, this was going to be an art project, and it had one goal. Our goal was to go to New York, get written up in New York rocker, and then disband. And when you have an art project, that's what you have is you have these steps to creating a piece, and then you have a show, or you have an event or something. And I had really never dreamed or thought about being in a band like this before. I mean, I was in the high school marching band, and I was in the chorus, but I wasn't ever a soloist because I was too shy. And I had a sweet little voice, my band director said. And he was shocked when he heard me years later. He's like, I can't believe that's you. So anyway, we were just making this project, and it came out the way it was, like you're saying, because of the four individual people,
So the band was like not even you
it
guys
wasn't
didn't,
supposed to what?
it wasn't supposed to be. You guys didn't really take it that seriously then in the beginning. It was just kind of fun, kind of a fun thing to do then, just to play parties and be a band.
Were you surprised that so many people took to
Well,
it?
yes, I was. It was kind of overwhelming, at first, because we went right from playing some house shows to a sold out show at Hurrah opening for the Gang of Four. And, I see the guitarist for the Pretenders is in the audience. And Fred introduces me to Glenn O'Brien, who's like the writer for Beat and Interview and all these people. And I'm like, well, I hope this goes okay. And I tell you, what happened is it went really good, but he was really brilliant that night, was Randy Bewley. It's like somebody who was there, actually, I think they said that it looked like Randy was having a relationship with the sound man who was really getting what he was trying to do. He was in the audience. And when we finished, hands were just like coming forward. I mean, this is like our 6th or 7th show, and they were all trying to touch him and shake his hand. And it was just like, wow. I mean, he was really, really brilliant. He was so good.
You say it's kind of it was a project. Did those guys play their instruments for very long before the band?
No, Randy had the idea to start a band, and he talked to Michael, and Michael's like, it's already all been done. I mean, why bother? And he was like, well, he explained his idea, and he said, look, listen to some music and kind of tease out what you think you might like to play. And he was kind of drawn to the bass line and the sound of the song. And he also thought with 4 strings, it might not be too hard. So, and different from that, because you're a bass player. You're a bass player.
10 points. Mama, 10 points.
And so it was Randy on drums and Michael was playing bass, and they realized they weren't really getting anywhere. I mean, this was, I think a long time before there were some other bands with just 2 people besides Suicide. So Randy picked up the guitar. I think, they both got their guitars like at a pawn shop for like 10, 15 or $30 a piece, and started playing. He's riffing and playing the same thing over and over. They were, and then they might find a little change that they could make, and they go, wow, we've got to change. And upstairs, meanwhile, the landlord for this art studio was Curtis Crow, and he'd played drums a little bit. And I think when he was a kid, he had a band called Billy and the Kids that played at one of the mom's cocktail parties. And he'd also played with some other friends from Marietta, like there was a band called Strictly American, and that was very early. Jeff Wall was in that.
Oh,
so,
okay, yeah.
And I think Murray Attaway from Marietta was in there
Wow.
too.
Yeah, there you go.
And Curtis's sister was the bass player for Guadalcanal Diaries. So there is a
Wow.
big
Oh.
Marietta connection to
Yeah.
Athens. So a lot of people don't realize. And so he came down and was like, hey, it sounds like you need a drummer, you know. And it must have seemed like manna from heaven, because
Yeah.
a drummer miraculously appears right when they need it. And he dragged Randy's drum kit in from the hall, and they went after it. And then they auditioned some guys, and none of the guys worked out. I think one of them brought in a guitar, and he had ideas, you know, and they weren't interested
Musicians.
in that. They wanted to kind of make, yes.
Yeah.
They wanted to make up their own thing, and so they kind of they gave up on that idea, and they were going to use found sounds, like they used weather radio recordings and a record called Teacher Parakeet to Talk for
Mhm.
vocals, but that was kind of limited too. So Randy said, "Hey, Vanessa's a friend of ours from art school. Let's ask her." And so I came in and auditioned, and there was this music stand, and it had lyrics already in it. And they play a song, and I went, you know, I don't know what they want me to do with this. These words don't really, the rhythm doesn't fit. So I just tried to make them fit. So when it was over, they were like, well, thank you, you know, and I was like, what is this all about? And I went home, I was like, well, okay, you know, maybe that wasn't so good. And then the next day, Randy called up and he said, you're in. We were going to go to New York, get written up in New York Rocker, and then disband. And at the time, I was waiting for my first husband to graduate, and I thought it wasn't going to take a whole lot of time out of my life, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, and here we go.
That changed quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Back in the early days, do you remember what the Athens scene was like? I mean, were the bands competitive? Were they supportive?
You mean after there was a lot of other bands?
I mean,
very supportive.
Yeah, like when the B-52s started, was there any scene at all, or were they really kind of the first band that you kind of knew of to kind of play locally?
Well,
you know, besides cover bands or whatever. Yeah.
You know, there was like a glam rock band earlier in the 70s I was aware of. I had a roommate next door. He was dating a guy from Tennessee when I was in college in the dorm. And she took me out to see this band practice, but they weren't there. So we never saw them, but they were called Zambo Flirts. And then I think Ricky and Keith had a band in high school called Black Narcissus. And then, you know, there was a band also called the Meat Hogs. They were kind of like a bunch of trashed out, you know, hippies wearing coveralls, and it was very bizarre. I think it leaned more toward Frank Zappa. But really nobody that played outside of town that much, other than this little kind of circuit around. And there were bands in Atlanta, like the Fans. The Fans were very big. And you know, then later on, right before us, the Swimming Pool Cues and the Brains, and there was kind of the Razor Boys. I think that Atlanta, except for the Fans and some other bands like the Restraints, tended to be more on the pop side. But until the B-52s, we hadn't had anybody that really represented us as a national, you know, act, you know, out of Athens. Of course, you know, previous to that, we'd had Southern Rock out of Macon, and Augusta, you know, we had James Brown.
Oh, right.
You know, Atlanta.
So there's a rich, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a rich history there. Yeah, there's a rich history there. The B-52s were, well, like Pylon, just not to plug myself in the Pylon box, but I kind of write that in my part of the liner notes. Like that era was just rich with bands just arriving fully formed with these original sounds. It's just, I don't know, it still blows my mind.
It was such an exciting time. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole period there, and the fact that you could turn to any major city and discover a whole new music scene. B-52s came along, we knew who B-52s were. I didn't realize that there was an Athens scene until R.E.M. and Pylon.
Sorry, Vanessa. I know we should let you
No,
explain
no,
Athens.
I,
Yeah.
I want you to. I want you to say it.
Two guys that weren't there talking about Athens. But
Shine, rain, Jerry. Hesitate, stop, spin, back again. Sometimes I feel like I speak the phone times. I feel like I've got no destination. I gyrate.
same deal. Yeah. B-52s, and then you started hearing about like Pylon and the Method Actors and Love Tractor and yeah, and then R.E.M. really like took it to the national level, I think. And like you said, Steve, there were all these little scenes: Athens, Austin, of course, the big New York and L.A. And
Ohio.
just a great time. Ohio, oh yeah,
Yeah,
Ohio.
like Devo. I mean,
Yeah.
It was really fascinating for us as and I hopefully I speak for at least half of Ronnie, is that it's always fascinating to look outside your own bubble, and discover. I mean, we were Ronnie was in Houston, right, when you were growing up.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
was in Southern California, so reaching out and discovering these new scenes, discovering the stuff that was going on around CBGB's, discovering the stuff that was in Athens, discovering the stuff that like Hoboken with the Feelies and the Bongos and all these amazing things, and of course overseas. So it's always the grass is always greener on the other side. So I stopped paying attention to some LA music and just started focusing on other cities, and it was also different.
oh, it
Yeah.
was. But at that time period, think that what you saw was the beginning of true regionalism. Like LA, you had the Germs, right?
Yeah.
They were great. So many good bands out of LA, and prior to that, our scene. Like I forgot to mention the Tone Tones that we played our first show with. Some members of that band later on went to the Method Actors. But you
Oh.
cannot downplay the importance of the B-52s because
Mhm.
they really opened a lot of doors in New York and elsewhere, because people would take a listen to you or take a chance on booking you just because you were from Athens, and that's where the B-52s were from.
Time again, faulty Warren. Another example of defensive
So
Yeah.
Vanessa, you guys, I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, Ronnie, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to get back to
You're the
Pylon
bigger
here.
rock star. You're the bigger rock star.
No. I was just going to get back to Pylon. So you guys go to New York, you get in the New York rocker, and you didn't break up. What happened? Like you got approached by DB Records at that point and just started making records, and the plan just kept evolving. And
Well, kind of, sort of. We actually didn't get written up in New York Rocker to begin with. We got written up in Interview magazine. I think somebody said it was kind of like we set our goal on like the local music paper. We ended up in U.S. News and World Report, something that really had major distribution, and people really knew because of Andy Warhol and his scene. So yeah, the next thing is we just started playing. We started being invited to New York a lot, and we decided to not break up because it was just so much fun. Curtis and Randy were still in school, and at some point they decided to put that on hold. Michael and I both just graduated, so we were a little bit more free. It was that kind of time in your life right after college or or if you decided to drop out of college.
Mhm.
the, you don't have to worry about making the car payment or the house payment, or
Mhm.
you don't really have a whole lot of strings holding you back. You can just go and be free and have fun, and just enjoy it. And that's how we approached it. Is it was something that we enjoyed doing, like to travel and go to these places.
What was the songwriting process like? I mean, did you sit in a cafe or a bedroom writing songs, or were they born out of improvisations?
With my beret
Yeah.
on, sitting in a cafe in Paris.
Yeah.
That would be so good, wouldn't it?
Right. Very romantic way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, every song came about in a different way.
Mhm.
You know, usually it happened like at practice. Sometimes the songs came out full born, just the way they were, like M Train and Crazy. Kay, Michael, and I played a Scrabble game to get lyrics, and we got the words, and then we took turns turning them into a sentence, and that's why, it talks about, 8 points or whatever. It's because it's a
Mhm.
Scrabble game, and we love to play Scrabble. Cool. Michael had those lyrics, and I think he had somebody, maybe Fred Schneider, had made him a bet that he could make a poem that was only so many lines with so many words in it, and that's where the lyrics for that came from.
Mhm.
But that was one of the ones they originally gave to me to try to make fit, and of course the words didn't really fit, so I just tried to. And, just own it, own it, own. Feast of My Heart. I had a friend at the time who lived down the street. We had a new song. It was worth like a rocker kind of song. And I was like, I don't know what to put to this. So I had a copy of the complete works of William Shakespeare.
Mhm.
So I opened it up and put my finger down, and it ended up on Titus Andronicus, Act 2, Scene 2. And we took turns translating it into modern slang. And that's where that one came from. And it started out with more verses, but we decided to like compress that song down. You can hear the original version that has 4 sets of lyrics and 2 drum breaks, but we decided to make a better song. We were going to turn it into a single, but it would only have 3 and 1 drum break.
Do you feel that you captured the essence of the band in the studio?
At the time, I didn't really, but as time has gone on, we all feel that it's almost like, you hate to say a precious document.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing we have.
Mhm.
And I'm happy that they exist,
Yeah.
We were really at our best as a live band.
Which is what I've heard for many, many years, and that's why I'm kind of ashamed that I never saw you. Did you see
Yes, you
Pylon?
should be ashamed. What happened? If you'd come and asked me, I would have let you in. I've let in many people.
Yeah, I was too young. I think I was 17. Well, no, I guess I would have been 20 when the second album came out. That second album is
It's not
such
too
a
young, Steve. That's not too
Okay.
young.
Yeah.
You
That second
should
album.
be ashamed. Yeah.
The second album is such a huge advancement. I mean, from the first. I love the energy of the first, but that second album, Chomp, is just so filled with this angular, wonderful sound that that's my personal favorite of the albums right there. Now, the set, of course, it contains the first two albums, and one of the albums is the Raz tape. Now, when you went back and listened to those recordings, which was, I think, pre-first single, were you embarrassed or amazed at what you heard when you listened to it?
At first, I cringed because I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And everybody's, "Oh, it's great, it's great." It's like Jonathan Richman or something, and it's grown on me because I think maybe it's closer to how we sounded live at the time. There's no studio trickery at all. Not that we ever really used that much, but
Right.
I can't go back and punch in because I didn't enunciate a word
Yeah.
correctly or whatever. And it was such a pain to do that anyway. We did very little of it. It's just like a field recording.
Yeah.
And, that's how we sounded live. If we were probably in a club that didn't have anything to put on the vocals and the
Mhm,
drums or
mhm,
whatever, because it's three mics. There's one
mhm.
mic on the drums, one mic is shared by the guitar and the bass player. And then I have the third one, and they put me out of the hall because they were so loud in that room.
Mhm.
And you can hear the room. The room was, this old wooden floor with these high ceilings, no air conditioning. I could just see the room, when I listened to that. And so it's really
Mhm.
grown on me, and I'm glad it exists.
It actually sounds quite good. I mean, three mics. I mean, it's a great snapshot of the band at that time. I mean, thank God that got recorded. Did you know it was out there? I mean, did you remember it?
Not really, but Randy knew about it because he chose a song off of that to put on one of the DFA reissues.
Hmm.
And Chris told us that he had given us a cassette. To be honest, back then, I hated listening to board tapes and to live things. And I've got like a whole collection of those. But this is one of the best ones. And how it came about being on the record is Jason Neesmith, who is my bandmate and was in a super cluster. He took over for Randy Bewley when he passed, and then in Pylon Reenactment Society, which just kind of started off as a one-off kind of show too. And he's a studio whiz. He went to the Berklee School of Music. He's got a degree in audio engineering, and he several years back, without knowing all the stuff that I was doing business-wise to try to get our things in place and our ducks in a row, he said, "Hey, if you ever want to reissue Chomp and Gyrate, I will remaster those. I'll restore those for you." And I was just like, oh yeah, he would be the guy. But he's really taken on, a much bigger mission than that. He's like become the person that's archived all this material, like our live shows and this. And, while we were looking for tapes and things, a friend of his, Chris Rasmussen, he was our old friend. He'd recently returned to town. He'd worked at Chapter 3 Records, your record store guy. For years, he had a store up in the Northeast called Secret Sounds. And he came back to Athens and he said, "Hey, Jason, have you heard this tape of Pylon?" And I recorded them, before they went in the studio. And Jason heard it. And he was just like, "Oh my God, Vanessa's got to hear this. We got to, use some of this." And at first, we planned to just have a couple of songs. I was going to make a double album that had like rarities and outtakes and, all the singles and stuff and that type of thing. And so Brady Brock, who's the executive producer for the project, once we signed, he heard the tape and he said, we've got to put the whole thing out just like it is. Jason remastered it. I'm really happy it exists.
I like
Now,
to point out it's not
just-
usual for bands to have such intellectuals surrounding them. Whether it's Jason or like bands playing Scrabble and writing lyrics. This is not usual in the rock and roll business. Just want to say that.
but
Like a boomerang, like a bad deed, like a bounce check, like a rubber ball, like a yo-yo, like a yo-yo, like a yo-yo.
I just want to point out too, we're talking about the box, but you know, Gyrate and Chomp are available separately too, which is a wonderful thing. So it's glad that those are in print again, because the prices, even since the CD reissues like 10 years ago, had gone up sky high again. So shows you how much people want Pylon. They need to be in print. Thank God you found New West. You found a great home, but not a lot of labels would, you know, put together this 200-page book. I mean, this thing is like just so beautiful. I'll just point to any page here.
Yeah, it's like, and we had a great guy who laid this out for us, Henry Owing. He totally understood Pylon. He loves Pylon, and he's the perfect guy to take care of all the heavy lifting on graphics for Michael. It was great is because of CD lovers like Stephen, we initially were just going to press this on vinyl, and we had a lot of people just get up in arms. We don't want any vinyl. You know, we want, we want CDs. We want the book. And so I was afraid to talk to New West about it because it's not my money. This thing is really expensive to make. I mean, if you look at it, you know why. And they decided on their own they should put out CDs. And we talked about it. And the best thing that we could think of to do was to put the CDs in the back of the book, because the people that wanted the CDs, all of them that weren't going to buy the, you can also get Gyrate and Chomp on CD, really inexpensive, did want the book. So we put it all together. So they're in the back with the artwork from the albums. So, they had to order some more, and it's going to be in a slimmer slipcase, so to fit in with your albums or your book.
I say this a lot. People will still buy CDs. It's not a dead format like a lot of people like to believe. And, I tell my friends in bands, like, just do a run of a couple of hundred CDs because you will sell them, especially established acts. Yeah, not saying the word old. Established acts.
Apart from the New West Records website, how can people keep updated on Vanessa Hay? Because you have the Pylon Reenactment Society, right?
Right.
I wish all bands would do that. I wish there'd be a Flock of Seagulls Reenactment Society and stuff like that. I mean, that's a smart, it's a loving way to embrace the great music that you've created and then create it in a new environment. So I absolutely love that idea. But how can people keep tabs on what you're doing and how to continue following you?
Oh, okay. Well, I do Twitter maybe once or twice a week. I'm not a big Twitter person. I'm still more of a Facebook person because it seems to draw in so many different things. But I have Instagram and Facebook. Twitter, I'm Pylon Girl. And Instagram, I'm Vanessa B. Hay. And there's also an Instagram, Pylon Reenactment Society. And we did put out a song for Halloween. We have enough material to record an album, but we were about to go into the studio and the pandemic happened. But you can keep up with us. We have a website, it's pylonreenactmentsociety.com. And the reason we called ourselves that is Pylon, as a joke, called ourselves Pylon Historical Reenactment Society, we put it together, I took out the historical because it was just a little too long, and I didn't think we could call ourselves Pylon because
Yeah.
there are bands that go out there with one original member that called themselves that. I thought it was wrong. Pylon fans would be, really pissed about it.
Vanessa, say Pylon again. I love the way you say Pylon.
Oh, Pylon.
It's wonderful.
What is that? What is that you have, Vanessa?
Well, it's coffee.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
It is like I thought. We actually came up. We did a taste testing, and there's a local people. It's like a ready-made object. I just like the idea of having a household
Wow.
object with our name on it.
Wow.
Well-
You were only supposed to play New York City, and then years later you have your own coffee.
I mean, it's a dream, isn't it?
Right. It's wonderful.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with us about Pylon and the new box set, Vanessa. Thank you, Ronnie. And that's it for this episode. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you all on the next episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Thank you, Vanessa. And thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate your time, Vanessa.
And thank you, Stephen. I appreciate your time and your interest.
We both appreciate Ronnie.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, him too.
Yep. Shop liver.
I tried to find a Kiss T-shirt to wear for you, Ronnie,
Oh.
and I just couldn't come up with one in time.
Hang
I
on,
know.
hang on.
I want it.
There
All
we go.
right.